Welcome to episode 3 of the mini-part series looking at 2024's year of music and records. Once again, Kevin, Billy and Ben have joined me to discuss this year our favourite finds on this episode on the vinyl format and what we've been digging and finding in shops and places throughout the year. So we'll start with you, Billy, and we'll go number 5. What's your 5th favourite find this year?
So this favourite find is a band I discovered on Record Store Day at Jumbo Records. It's a Leeds band. I think they're a Leeds band called Bugteeth. Very funky little band. They when they're on stage, they wear little green knitted hats for some reason, which made me chuckle. I thought it was a one-off thing, but I follow them on social media and they wear them at all their gigs. The EP is called Lucky Me, Lucky Mud. If you could get a copy of it. It was released 2023, 5 tracks. I've actually not played it for a while, but it's got a nice sound. Very new daddy. Again, if you like that sort of vibe, but again, a lead singer, a female lead singer, just done a GoFundMe page for their debut album, which I believe is finished. So that's something I'm quite looking forward to hearing, I presume, next year. So that's my number 5.
Cool. All right. Ben, what about you? Number 5?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the compilation, if that's all right. So yeah, it's a compilation I found, and I purely picked it up because of the cover. So I've got it here in front of me, but it's pretty cool, like beachside pull from maybe 70s era. It's called Miles Away 1. Now, I believe this is the name of the actual record label, Miles Away. So I'm guessing this will be a 1 in part of the forthcoming series, I imagine. But yeah, it's really good. I think it's very disco funk laden with the soul element to its core, and I think it's just a couple of standout tracks on here: Fantasy Ride and you've got Idris Muhammad, I'm a Believer, which opens it up, which I'm sure you'll be familiar with him. But yeah, I think, just really good. And there's like a Latin track on there called Valley of Ore by Paulina Viroga. Just a really interesting compilation. And I played this out when I was DJing with Billy a couple of weeks back. I got a little bit lazy and actually played about 6 tracks off this. I think there's only 12 on it, so I played half the album. Nobody knew, so I did an all right job of it. But yeah, it was... I just think it's one of those albums you can just slap on the turntable and discover new things every time you listen to it. And I've ended up buying 2 LPs by artists on the album. So looking forward to what they release going forward from a label. I think I'm really into like the Be With Records label, and it has that similar kind of vibe in terms of the choice cuts on there and stuff. So yeah, that's my first one on the top 5, I'd say.
The Be With Records label's brilliant because it puts out so many great, like, funk and soul, experimental, electronic albums that you can't get, like, ever anymore because they're just so expensive. He does a really good job of it as well. The guy's name he might be called Ben, actually, the guy's name.
Sure. Manchester, I think.
Manchester-based. He's got an insane record collection. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram, he's got a ridiculous record collection, and it's really nice shelves and stuff. So cool. I'll have to check that one out.
So check it out, man.
Yeah, cool. All right, Kev, what's your number 5?
The Lynch Mob, Planet of the Apes. Second album by them. They were only around for 3 years or so, back in early 90s. I didn't know them at the time. They're a group that as I've got more and more into hip hop, I've dug back deeper and deeper into and come across these. They were on an Ice Cube album, America's Most Wanted. They then worked with Ice Cube on their debut album, which is Gorillas in the Mist, which is really, really good, classic album. I mean, I've been waiting to pick up a copy of this for a while, and by chance I've been doing some shopping in Leeds on Saturday, desperately avoiding record shops because it's coming up to Christmas, etc. And I was walking through the market and we had a second-hand craft fair sort of thing on, like an antiques fair, and right at the very end of it was this stall with two women sat selling records, and not a massive amount, but they had some albums and some singles, and this was in amongst it. Now, there was a lot of stuff that wasn't of interest to me, but I did end up spending about 50 odd quid there with them, including picking this up for 15 quid, which decent price for it, good condition, plays perfectly. But talking to them as I was paying, they were selling off their, well, in one of the cases, the deceased husband or deceased dad it was a mum and daughter, it turned out. Had a really good conversation with them, and quite a nice sort of moment, really, sort of the fact that the dad had got his own personal collection, which they've kept, but he also liked buying and selling at record fairs, and he had a garage full of records, basically, of which this was in there, and has now found another good home, hopefully, for a number of years. So, yeah, it was nice to come across a decent copy of that for a reasonable price, and in quite nice circumstances, in a way.
Cool. Yeah, it's nice when things like that happen, when people are selling records off and it goes to somebody that actually will listen to the music and enjoy the record. That's for sure. My number 5 could have been my number 1, to be fair, if I hadn't have done this trip recently. So I, out of some weird circumstances, have managed to acquire an original UK pressing of What's the Story Morning Glory by Oasis. One of my good friends up here has recently got a new job in Wales, and moved to Wales to also live with a girl that he now has been seeing for quite a while. So he's moved to Newport, and I knew he had a box of records, and I knew there was some of the stuff that was in there was like amazing. And he agreed to sell it to me. So we haggled on price for a little while. I picked up the whole collection. There's some amazing stuff in there, but in there was this. So I've been after an original pressing for years. Obviously I've had the reissues for a long time, being a big Oasis fan, but yeah, it's in like, he's barely ever played them either because he didn't have a turntable, or he did have a turntable, but then he broke it somehow and never used it again. But there was other stuff in there. There was an original pressing of Be Here Now, which obviously again was another one that was on my want list. There was some early Ian Brown stuff, which I'd never got on vinyl because it was ridiculous expensive. Loads of Ocean Colour Scene stuff. Yeah, just a really good 90s indie collection. So I finally paid him off what I owed him for them, because it wasn't cheap, but because he knew how much they were worth. But anyway, really, really good.
It's a nice find for you, and she must be a special girl to give up that record collection and move to Newport.
Yeah.
No offense to any Newport listeners.
But he's kept his Newcastle season ticket as well, which, I mean,
all right.
Ben, I know you do a trip.
I was going to say, if he wants to donate it now and again, hit me up. Yeah,
He definitely doesn't go to all the games, so I could always ask for you if he's interested. But yeah, right, okay, we'll go back to you, Ben, and go number 4.
Yeah, so number 4, I'm going to put a band on here. I think the other episodes we've done, I think 90s is a big thing at the minute, delving back into that. And for me, it's a band called Kitchens of Distinction. I've been picking up quite a few of their EPs and 12-inch singles and stuff down the last few years. I managed to get the album Love Is Hell, which I believe is a debut album. Really good. Like, I think there's been a big shoegaze dream pop revival, shall we say, or if you want to call it that, this year in particular.
Yeah.
And this is very much up there with the dream poppy indie kind of vibe. And yeah, it's just a band I've recently discovered just by picking up a few EPs and stuff, but finally found the album just at a record fair in Leeds, and yeah, loving it, and really enjoying discovering them. And unfortunately, I don't think they're going anymore, maybe, but yeah, for a lesser known 90s indie band, but well worth checking out.
Cool. Yeah, they're one I'm going to check out. When you sent that list, I did have a listen to a couple of tracks and online on YouTube, and they were brilliant. So yeah, I am going to try and check their stuff out.
They changed the sound over the years as well. They
have they?
Remember, like mid-90s, they had a sort of phase where they were sort of a bit REM-y almost. I saw Billy's ears perk up then.
Yeah.
Songs like Now It's Time to Say Goodbye and stuff like that. Really
beautiful.
So, yeah, cool. Really underrated. But another one of them bands that you saw the sort of names on tour posters and stuff like that, Melody Maker and Enemy, and I didn't check them out enough at the time. But yeah, I've been delving into the back catalogue a little bit as well.
Cool. Sounds good. Kev, we'll come to you then for number 4.
Staying on a sort of hip hop vibe, with my fourth one, guy called Bashi, UK rapper. Album's called Being Poor is Expensive. Don't know anything about the majority of his back catalogue, but it's his first album in 15 years apparently. Another one of them that I just sort of saw that it was out. The cover looked interesting. Downloaded it, listened to it on a train journey. Really, really enjoyed it. Did a bit of a delve back, and he's worked with loads of people over the years. Obviously, as a Blur obsessive, I like Gorillaz. He was on White Flag, which I never realised, a single that Gorillaz put out. You know, so he's done a lot of stuff over the years, but it's a really modern sounding hip hop album. It's not your sort of boom bap 90s stuff. Not quite venturing into like grime or anything like that, but you know, similar to like Dave and people like that. It's got that sort of sound to it. So, yeah, I'm really intrigued by him and going to try and see what his other stuff's like. Not necessarily committing to buying it, but certainly going to delve into him a bit more. So, really love this album, though. Could have easily made me top 5, to be fair, on the other podcast we did. But
okay, cool. Yeah, not one that I've heard of. But yeah, obviously hip hop vibes then. So again, it's not really massively my bag, but I will give it a chance on your recommendation, Kev. So cool, Billy. On to your number 4.
So, driving back from my cousin's 18th last year, I was listening to Six Music, and Guy Garvey had a band I didn't know on called New Fast Automatic Daffodils. Whilst driving home, I liked it so much, I bought as many 12 and 7-inch singles as I could find. And that's when that beautiful man, Ben Lester, comes into the story, because he's literally found me, I think, all of their albums on every time you seem to go out at the start of the year, it was costing me money. But you did find
you're always
there.
on my mind, that's why, Billy.
Well, you know, I do have that effect on people, but you found me there. I think the first thing you found for me was their second album, which is called Body Exit Mind. And it's absolutely brilliant. And it wasn't on my list, but I just changed it last minute because I'm a rebel like that. But it has a song on it called It's Not What You Know, which has fastly become one of my favourite songs of all time. I don't quite understand how they've sort of vanished, and I actually don't know how a band from Manchester of this quality escaped me for so long. But I'm very glad that I've discovered them. There should be a live album of theirs coming out later. It should have been this year, but I think it's last year. They found it on a mixing desk in the old Hacienda. Someone's taken the mixing desk home, and they found a live recording of theirs, which I believe, if it's not out yet, it's going to be out soon. So looking forward to that.
I'm sure Ben will pick it up for you.
Yeah, he's on the list I've given him.
Yeah, I've obviously I remember this happening this year. Your obsession with that band, and then you've played some of them live, haven't you? As well, you've DJ'd some tracks.
It's the first one I played. My first DJ set at Christmas.
Yeah,
at the Old Woolen.
The Woolen,
it's not what you know.
Parsley,
yeah.
Cool.
Brilliant.
All right.
In fact, it skipped as I was playing it because it was Dusty Needle, and the guy on the right selling t-shirts was like, "Oh, the lead singer of that band's my boss." And I was like, "Oh, excellent!" I've just messed up one of his tunes, but that was quite a funny moment.
My number 4 is by an artist called Mary Clayton. So I've actually found both her records this year. She only really put 2 records out, but one of them is Gimme Shelter, which I just found in Seattle when I was over there a couple of weeks back, which is this one, which I'm just showing now. And it has, everybody knows the album, the song Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones. Well, she did the vocals for this. This is her vocals on that album, on that song, sorry. And it's probably one of the best covers ever of a record, of a song, I think, this album. But I also found this album as well earlier in the year called Ode, which is her other one. That's got some covers on, some Carole King stuff. Southern Man, Neil Young, again, a really good cover of that. Bill Withers out a song, Grandma's Hands. But yeah, she's a great soul singer, amazing voice. Again, her name came up quite a couple of times in the book circles when I was doing the books and stuff. So yeah, Really happy to find that one in a shop in Seattle called Easy Street Records, which is just an absolutely insane shop. I went in there and I could have spent my rest of my 2-week trip in there. It was mental. It was massive. So many great records, so many nice people to chat to. So yeah, that was that one. So really happy to find that. Kev, we'll come back to you. Number 3.
Number 3, again, it's hip hop. This particular list is quite hip hop dominated this year. A guy I've never heard of, and sometimes you just read a description of an album, and you think, yeah, I'll take a punt on that. That sounds like it's going to be up my street. So, Superstar, and I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, Superstar Kwamala, Invisible Man album. It's from about 2009, I think, roughly. Like I said, I've never heard of it. It was a limited pressing of 500 copies. Read the description, then listened to a couple of tracks, and it was like, yeah, I'm ordering this. I really, really like this. A really sort of fairly chilled, jazzy hip-hop album. I know he's had support from like Giles Peterson and people like that. Yeah, I don't know if it's easy to get hold of still or not, but yeah, great sort of album to put on in the background and lose yourself in. Its lyrics are really good. It's quite a sort of social album in terms of the lyrics and stuff. So yeah, a really happy find from taking a punt, basically.
Yeah, echo that as well, Kev. I think you got me onto it as well. I think that was Be With Records, funnily enough, as well, wasn't it? Who pressed it? But yeah, great album, great discovery, and thanks for sharing it my way. But yeah, well worth in your top 5, that one, man.
Cool. Just Be With Records. His name's Rob, by the way, not Ben.
Yes.
Rob. Cool. All right, well, we'll stick with you then, Ben, and come to your number 3.
Yeah, so number 3 is just a band in general. Couple albums in particular which I'll shout out, but a band called The Chills, who are from New Zealand. Late 80s, early 90s, I think, possibly. But yeah, one of my mates, Jez, who you met at the National gig, I think, in Manchester when I saw you there with Dad, he got me into him just to check this band out. Got in like really melancholic indie, jingle jangle again, similar vibes to what we said before. I think the lead singer, Martin Phillips, passed away sadly this year, though. So it's another band I've come across too late in the day, I think. But Brave Words and Submarine Bells are a couple of my favourite albums by them. And I think when you listen to them, through the discography of the catalogue, I think it's really clear that they've influenced bands like the Shins and stuff like that, which is not a bad thing, you know what I mean? No. So yeah, really, really good band. And yeah, I've managed to, funnily enough, the same week I got recommended them, I wandered into Relics and found 3 of their albums, just sat there in the rack, so I managed to pick them up at reasonable prices in there. So yeah, they're often on the turntable, but band in general is a find this year, I'd say, as well as the albums.
Yeah, I've heard of The Chills. Never really listened to them that much. Probably a few singles again, so I need to dig back into their stuff. Yeah, definitely try and check them out. Okay, Billy, number 3.
So my number 3 is a new band from Manchester called the Umorals. They had an in-store at the Vinyl Whistle not too long ago. Their name is phenomenal because it basically translates. It's an Italian word for retired men who watch building sites and criticise. So if you Google their name, it's literally pictures of grumpy old Italian men drinking coffee, looking very unhappy at what the builders are doing to whatever part of the city they're in. I wasted at least an evening of my life going through everything that Google had to offer. And also their music's not bad either. They've just released one EP a couple of weeks ago called One More Day. Again, it's very new daddy. Again, if you like that sort of sound. Again, it's another female singer, which has been a big thing for seems to be quite a theme in the things that I've liked this year. Had a beer with them after their show, and they were great. Again, looking forward to what they're going to do next year. I think they said they're going to be doing lots of the festivals next year and doing a lot more gigs. So I think they're a part-time band. They've all got full-time jobs. So hopefully they can quit that soon and do this full time, because really, really good in store, really, really nice EP. Yeah, really looking forward to again seeing what they're going to come up with next.
Okay, cool. Yeah, another band I've never heard of, but I will check them out. So my number 3 was a Record Store Day release from this year, and it was Fleet Foxes live on Boston Harbor. This was like, I didn't realize at the time how hard this was to get originally, but I managed to pick a copy up, and so did my dad at the record plant in Farsley. But then I know friends around the country didn't get it because it was literally so hard to get. So I was really happy to manage to grab a copy of it. However, it's getting reissued in 2 days' time. So, which I didn't find out until last week. So I would have got a copy eventually, but yeah, just a really good live Fleet Foxes gig. It was on the album Shore, that was on that Shore tour that they did a couple of years back, but the set list was like 28 songs or something. It's across 3 records, and it's a really good mix of the stuff from all their albums. Robin Pecknold, the singer, was like, his voice is incredible that night. Play it quite a lot. Played it again today, this morning. That was the first thing I put on, and it's just such a beautiful album. And it's like Fleet Foxes are kind of like, again, I can't remember which band we were talking about before, where the first couple of records was great, and then we tailed off. Or Fontaines, weren't we? We were on about them earlier on the other podcast episodes. But their first 2 albums were like amazing. When they came out, Fleet Foxes, like they were like nothing that anybody had ever heard in like indie kind of circles, folk circles at that point. But then they tailed off a little bit for me after Helplessness Blues album, which is one of my favorite records ever. So caught them live in Leeds one year at the Academy, and it was just superb. And obviously they had Father John Misty drumming, didn't they? He drummed for them a little bit early back in the day. So yeah, that's my number 3. So yeah, on to number 2. We'll go back to you, Billy. Number 2.
So number 2, a cheeky little eBay find. I found the last release from I Am Klute, which was their Hold Back the Night live album, which is essentially I Am Klute's greatest hits, which was recorded at the gig in Manchester, which I was at. I forget the venue, and a gig in Newcastle, as the bass player is from Newcastle. It's just a wonderful collection of songs, and it's such a shame that they called it a day, because I think you mentioned it about someone else being a really underrated songwriter, and John Bramwell's definitely up there.
Michael Head, yeah, Bramwell's amazing. Again, we haven't mentioned Bramwell's album this year, have we?
It nearly made it into my top 5, but it was just such a strong year. I Am Klute as well were just such a great live band. If you never got to see them in the Pomp, they're never going to get back together. So it's a shame they never. They almost deliberately, when they got nominated for the Mercury Music Prize, they almost deliberately took their foot off the gas and didn't want to go on to do what Elbow did, which was a bit of a shame, because I thought at the time they were going to go and really take off, but never happened. But it's a really good live recording. I don't tend to buy live albums. I'm not a big fan of live albums, if I'm being honest. But this is brilliant, and it's a bit Bob Dylan-y in the sense that he kind of sings the wrong verses. Do you know what I mean? He'll sing verse 2 as verse 1, and he'll sing the ending differently, and all his songs do seem to take on a life of their own.
Yeah, he doesn't give a shit, basically.
Yeah, great band, and really pleased with that find.
Yeah, I'm hoping their stuff. I know one of their albums, I Am Klute, got reissued, didn't it, a few years back? But
it got reissued twice.
He got reissued, white cover and a black cover, didn't it? Or something?
Yeah, and Gods and Monsters got reissued. I've heard a rumor that The Sky at Night is going to be reissued with live stuff, but John Bramwell, he's lost a lot of, or whoever's in charge of their stuff has lost a lot of the master copies. Right. So I know for a fact the first album, Modern Nature, isn't going to get a reissue, because I don't know where that is, it's next on my want list. But hopefully they turn up in a mislabeled box somewhere.
Yeah. In fact, I think I have got Gods and Monsters, just thinking about it now. But yeah, Hold Back the Night is like, that's high on my want list. Desperate for that album.
Yeah. Let them all in. But yeah, and the Let Them All In album, their last album, again needs a reissue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Ben, on number 2.
Yeah, number 2. Frank and Walters, Trains, Boats and Planes. So it's an album that's been on my want list for bloody ages. Another brilliant stab like the 86 style indie. Proper jingle jangle stuff. I think After All was like the biggest song, if not for them, but definitely on the album. And I think it's back in 1993, so similar vibes to what we've been speaking about quite a lot. Picked it up at a record fair off Scratch Records, actually. And then since found another copy last week, so I bought that. So I've got two now. So after that, I've been finding one for the best part of 10 years or whatever. I found two in the space of a few months. But yeah, it's great album. Again, I think not an underrated band amongst like music fans and stuff, but I think definitely mainstream wise, definitely underrated in comparison to, you know, like quite a lot of peers like Wedding Present and stuff like that. But yeah, really, really good band. Really happy to pick it up, and yeah, to get two copies within the space of a few weeks is pretty joyous. To be
Just
fair.
what happens as record collectors, isn't it? You're looking for one, and then another one comes along, just almost instantly. It's a weird thing how that happens. Cool, yeah.
You didn't go to the gig I put on, did you? About 10 years ago, Ben. I put the Frank and Walters on at the Northern Monkey on the Hedgerow on Friday night.
No, I don't think so.
Probably in the sort of 4 years I was putting bands on in Leeds, that was probably head and shoulders my favourite gig I put on. They were absolutely brilliant. There's like 100 people in this pub, and they're just packed, and you know they couldn't have been happier to be playing, considering they've played much bigger venues in their career and stuff. And yeah, by chance I picked that album up myself in the last year as well. I've been bidding and dropping out of bidding on eBay for a few years because it keeps going for higher prices than I wanted to pay. But yeah, I picked up a copy as well. Great album.
Cool. What about you, Kev? Number two.
Number two is another hip hop one. But this one's a bit more familiar. This is probably one of the first hip hop albums I ever got into. So it's PM Dawn with the ridiculously long titled Of the Heart, of the Soul, and of the Cross, the Utopian Experience, which is a catchy. I mean, I've taken up about 15 minutes on podcast reading that out, haven't I? Yeah, I think early days of hip hop, I was an indie kid. I got into De La Soul quite early, and I liked PM Dawn. You know, they were both quite mainstream. You heard them a lot. You'd maybe get them on indie compilations or dance compilations at the time and stuff. So they were my first sort of inroads into hip hop, really. I've wanted this album for a while. You can pick it up, but trying to find a copy that's not bashed to bits and is reasonably priced isn't that easy. I'm very hungover one morning after a night out in Hull earlier this year. Managed to pick it up at Spin It Records in Hull Market, which can be a treasure trove of finds at times. So yeah, I managed to pick that up. It's just a really, again, jazzy, chilled album. There's the odd slightly dancier track on it. It just at the time was an album that kind of spoke to me a bit more than a lot of hip hop, because a lot of it was much more sort of gangster rap, and as a lad growing up on the tough streets of Tingley, it wasn't really speaking to me. But they sort of it was more about sort of girls and relationships and stuff like that at the time. So yeah, I've always liked that album, so really glad to pick it up. And the singles are always somewhere in my DJ box, usually if I'm DJing somewhere.
Okay, so my number two. Recently, obviously, you know, I've just been to Canada and America, and I was in a record shop in Canada, in Vancouver. I'd been record shopping, so I'd been there a few days, 3 days or something. So on the Monday, which was this day, I went shopping by myself. I was staying with friends or family, kind of family. They went back to work, so I went record shopping by myself that day. Hit up a couple of shops, found some really good stuff. And then I went to this other shop, which someone had recommended me, called Zulu Records. So I walked in this shop, and what I'd been doing, as I'm sure you guys do, is go to the new arrivals like bins. If they've got a bin with new arrivals on, that's where I generally go, even in a country I don't live in. So record shops I don't go to generally all the time. So went to this new arrivals bin, and they had like 3 boxes or 3 crates or whatever you want to call them. First kind of few I went through, it's some all right stuff, a lot of like Beatles and stuff like that. And then I picked out a record an indie record from the 2000s. God, what was it now? It was the Twang's debut album, which I already have. And I had a look at it, and it was a little bit scratched, so I put it back. It was original pricing, really good price. And then I flicked through like a couple more records, and then I couldn't believe it. My face must have just dropped, and I picked up this record, which is the self-titled debut record by a Leeds band called Sunshine Underground, which is my number 2. And I picked this record out, and it's been on so ever since I started the Discogs Want list. It was one of the first 10 records that got put on there, and it's been on there ever since. And that was 13 years ago, whatever now, since I've been collecting records. So I couldn't believe that was there. And how the hell I managed to find that record in a shop in Vancouver, I will never know. And it kind of just went from there, that 10, 15 minutes of finding records that I was after or that I knew were great records. I found I Am the Resurrection 12-inch single with the print, which my copy's not got the print. So I've now got 2 copies of that. Having said that, I will be selling that in a few weeks' time at a record fair, at Record Plant in Farsley. Everybody come down. What else did I find? Jarvis Cocker's Complications, is it called? The one where
good album.
Yeah, the way he's like kind of upside down on the record sleeve.
Yeah.
Picked up that. God, what else did I find? I found like loads of mid 2000s indie stuff, and then literally had them I had a pile of about 7 records in my hand, and I took them to the counter, and the guy literally said to me, he was like, "I've only just put them out 20 minutes ago," and I was just like, it's just one of those right timing, right moment, right place and time that I was there, and I picked them out because I don't know whether somebody else would have picked them out before I picked them out, but. First, like, what else did I find? Maximo Park's second album, which I bought for my dad because I already had an original copy of that. A few other bits and bobs. Then I was at the counter and I turned to my left and they had a wall of records and I nearly fainted at the counter because they had my number 1 record, Band of the Year, was We Live and Die in These Towns by The Enemy, and that was on the wall. And I was like, I thought I was like seeing things. So I went over and picked that up as well. And he was like, "Oh, you're having that as well?" And I was like, "I've been looking for that record for like all my life, pretty much, of collecting records." And the price was just insane. So basically what he told me is this guy had priced these records because he said that he thought the records were like a little bit worn. But I've brought them home since and played them and they've not. They are like played brilliantly. So in a shop in Vancouver, I've managed to find 2 records that I've been after for 15 years in collecting records. And obviously, since I posted The Enemy on Instagram, people still can't believe I found it for the price I did. Like when we were over there, Ben, you text me, didn't you, asking what I'd found or something? Because you were playing Sunshine Underground about a week before, weren't you? And you put it on Instagram. And I can't believe that you had that record and I never had it. And I was just like, desperate to find that record. And I found that. So absolutely amazing. I messaged our friend Jamie as well, and he couldn't believe I'd found that record, and he hates me for it ever since. So, but fucking he works in a record shop; he'll find it one day. So yeah, so that's my number 1, number 2, and number 1. So, Kev, we'll go to you for your number 1 find of the year.
It's a compilation album. Didn't come out this year. I think it's been out 3 or 4 years, probably something like that. It's a Late Night Tales compilation, which obviously I've done loads over the years. The sound tends to be sort of, as it would suggest, about late night listening and post club listening and that sort of stuff. This one's by Don Letts, compiled by him. And I've been buying up a bit of reggae stuff a bit more in the last year or 2. It's not a genre I know a lot of stuff by. This is really sort of dub based as a sound. And it's all cover versions, basically. There's everybody, there's Joy Division being covered on here in a dub style. There's the Beatles, Big Audio Dynamite, The Clash, which obviously The Clash did sort of cross over into that sort of sound themselves. There's all sorts on here. Bill Withers cover in a dub style, there's all sorts, but it just fits together really, really well as an album. It's got a beautiful sunshine vibe to it as dub anyway. When you listen to it, it makes you think of that big sound system at festivals, just knocking out a beat as you're going past it. And Some really interesting covers. I've played a couple of them when DJing. They've always gone down well. People coming up and going, "Oh, what's this? Who's this by?" So yeah, it's a really, really good compilation. Obviously, Don Letts knows his stuff, and he's crossed over doing various things over years in music and got various styles and genres and stuff. So yeah, if you've not given it a listen, I would try it, even if it's not a genre you're sort of particularly big on yourself. Give it a go because there's some really interesting covers on there.
Yeah, I've not got any of the Late Night Tales stuff. I've know it, and I've probably listened to a couple of bits of it before, but yeah, I've been buying a fair bit of reggae this year as well, based off some people's recommendations and stuff, but mainly picking up old reggae albums by like on the Trojan label by like bands like the Upsetters and other people like that. So yeah, Blackbirds and stuff.
You'll be shocked to hear I've been buying a lot of 7-inch singles reggae wise.
I mean, the Trojan label's amazing to pick up.
Yeah, there's a lot kicking around, and you know, it's like I said, I don't know a lot about it and enough about it, so it's a big sort of area to build on and learn more and dip me toe in the water and try things, and yeah, really enjoying it. But this compilation's ace. Yeah.
Cool. I actually got a book last Christmas about reggae, a reggae like labels book, which was dead cheap as well. I can't remember where I got it from now. Somewhere behind me on that shelf. But yeah, it's worth a check out. I'll send you the picture of the copy. So
yeah, send me the name of it. Cheers.
Yeah, cool. All right, we'll go to Billy for your number one of the year.
So my story is very similar to yours, Ian. Either I wasn't in Vancouver, I was in Leeds. So I was at Brudenell Social Club.
Yeah.
And I actually think all three of you were there when I found this.
I remember being there.
Yeah. I was going through the racks, and this is probably very similar to your story. This has been number one on my want list for about 15 years. I found a copy of Johnny Dangerously's You and Me and the Alarm Clock, who's now obviously John Brownwell of I Am Clute, who I talked about in my number two. Before he was in I Am Clute, he was a solo artist called Johnny Dangerously, who'd did one EP before. He did one EP, and then he did a band called The Mouth with Brian Clancy, the Seldom Seen Kid, before he went on to do I Am Clute. This album EP was in an independent the independent newspaper. It was described as the greatest album you've never heard in about 92, 93. There's two variants of this one. You can either get the John Bramwell one that was reissued in about 2005, or the Johnny Dangerously one, which goes on eBay for 120 quid. I managed to get this for £20 because the cover is someone spilled a bit of tea on it. But the record plays fine. It was generally like you. When I found it, my jaw hit the floor. He didn't take cash. No, he only took cash, not card. So I had to run. I said, "Don't you sell that to anyone else?" As I run out the Brudenell to find 20 quid from a cash machine, and then it plays brilliantly. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever top that. To be fair, that's been my number one find. Ben, you found it, didn't you, about a week later?
Yeah. Like you were saying, Ian, where it just pops up when you least think about it, you know, and it's just probably somewhere in your conscience, in it. But yeah, I think I picked it up for a similar price, like 30 odd quid. But yeah, great pickup, to be fair, Bill. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was buzzing when I found it. It's one of my favourite EPs. I think it's got some of his best songs on it as well, which he's just started doing live again, which is really good. Black and Blue, and what's the other song called? Tearing It Down, and Junk Culture. He started doing them live again, which is great. Yeah, so that's my number one. You and Me and the Alarm Clock by Johnny Dangerously.
Cool. All right, and then finally, Ben, your favourite find of the year.
Yeah, so favourite find of the year. I don't think it's a particularly rare record as far as I'm aware or anything like that, but it's Shara Nelson, What Silence Knows. I don't know if you're aware of Shara, but she was a member of Massive Attack on the Blue Lions album in particular. Like quite a lot of the vocals on some of the big hits on that album. So yeah, I think this is like, I've been really getting into acid jazz this year after seeing Galliano at the final whistle. Like Kez put me on a few other people and stuff, and this is very much of that kind of ilk. And yeah, the beauty of it was I found it in like a tip shop for £1, which I just didn't expect it to be in there whatsoever. Great condition. I think it's only ever been pressed once in '93 as well, so original pressing. And there's a particular track on there called Inside Out, which is absolutely it's a gorgeous track, and the vocals are like out of this world, to be fair. I think on earlier episodes you spoke about some female vocalists, and I think she's up there in terms of soul vocalists and really showcases abilities. I think when you look on Spotify on this album, the listens are minimal, surprisingly. Like really minimal. So I think, yeah, it's what looks like a very underrated album, but definitely not within my racks. It's one thing I've had on quite a lot since buying it for £1.
Is she still doing anything? I've not heard anything from her for years.
No, I don't think so. I've had a look in terms of if she's featuring on stuff, but I've not seen anything, so I'm not too sure what she's up to. It'd be interesting.
I believe she's a primary school teacher.
All right, okay.
I think so. I think she's a primary school teacher. There was something about Massive Attack on some 90s music thing I was listening to, and I'm pretty sure they said she's a primary school teacher.
Right, okay.
I might be wrong.
Did it get Mercury nominated, that album, or am I making that up?
Yeah, it did get Mercury nominated.
I think it did, yeah, but it's like the whole album's like really strong. And I think it's like 1993, so what's that, like 30 years old now, so it's it's still all strong, like really strong album. And I think there's a lot of artists out there now who are getting a lot more coverage than she ever did, which I don't think is fair, to be fair. But yeah, check that album out if you've not heard it.
Nope, I've not heard it. I do like Blue Line's Massive Attack era. I like a lot of Massive Attack stuff. A band I haven't listened to for ages, funnily enough. So yeah, cool. All right, well, that's the year. That's the year in music, in records in 2024. And that's the end of episode 3 in this mini-part series of a roundtable discussion talking about music. Every year, I always say it can't get better than last year. And again, it does. Every year just gets more stronger and stronger in releases. And you guys jokingly say I buy a lot of records, which I do, and I spend more and more money every year just because the records that are just coming out are so strong. I've probably bought more new releases this year than I have done for many years.
I'm the same, actually. I think I bought 106, I think it was at last count, new releases.
Wow. I mean, that's definitely more than I bought. But yeah, I'm just looking at the new releases down on the shelves there. But yeah, again, like I say, great year for music. And yeah, thanks for coming on and joining us. And I'm sure we'll do this again as a roundtable kind of episode discussion thing. It's been fun. So
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks
for the invite. Cheers.